do you know what? I'm actually okay. I'm good enough. And when you go up from a physics point of view, your vibration, your energetic level or frequency is higher. It's not as easy for you to attract a narcissist because they are attracted to somebody that's at a lower vibration, someone that's not happy with who they are, that hasn't got to that. Do you know what? I'm actually a pretty good catch and I don't need to stay with such an asshole as you.
Okay, so today I'm here with a very good friend of mine and a very talented therapist. We've got Amanda Steadman, and I can't emphasize enough how much she's helped me and how brilliant she is at helping people through their dark places. So, how would you introduce yourself, Amanda?
Hi there, my name is Amanda Steadman. I'm a holistic hypnotherapist and energy healer. So I essentially help people get through that dark side, and dark side could be anything from, coming through a relationship, death, wanting more confidence, wanting a relationship, anything really where they are not being able to manage their emotions in the way that they want to. So I train them to help get to grips with their emotions, on helping them through that. And I know today, particularly, narcissists are on the agenda. So I find that majority of my clients, especially ladies, are dealing with a narcissist relationship. So that is an area that has come up a lot, especially in the last 2 years.
And what would you say is the biggest barrier to people dealing with narcissists or the dark side in their world?
There's something very powerful about a narcissist. They suck you in like a black hole. And when we are so needy for love, because there's, again, with a lot of the trauma in the backgrounds of the clients I have, they didn't always get it from the parents or whoever brought them up. And so that leaves a big gaping hole for a narcissist, particularly in a relationship or even a parent child relationship, to come in and just really take advantage of what I would call I'm going to just call it for the sake of argument, an empathic type person. And empaths are very attracted to narcissists because they're very strong and they make decisions and they're very direct, and they kind of deep down, I think we kind of want to be like them, but we can't because we're empaths. We want to have that I'm going to say selfishness, because the majority of them are particularly selfish and they just don't have a view of everything else that's going on in the world. Everything revolves around them. And I'm sure some of you know some, and the narcissist scale goes from down here to way at the top. But now I'm sure some of you have friends where you go and meet them and you care about them, you like them, you've been friends with them for a long time, but then they just talk about themselves for the entire time that you're in the pub with them, and you're trying to get a word in, and just for that entire hour and a half, they've literally talked about themselves and all of their problems. That is the trait of a narcissist, a baby one. And then you've got the other ones to the extreme, in a relationship where literally everything's centered around them. You have to serve them. You have to perform in bed for them. You can't do anything that they don't like. And it becomes a trap and a bit like a hamster wheel, because you like the love and you want to be with that strong person because you are attracted to that strength. Then you start to realize that something's wrong. And many clients have that kind of mental breakdown or emotional breakdown, or they physically get ill because and in the worst narcissist relationships, none of their needs are being met. And it's hard to watch because they are getting the opposite of what they need, which is love, encouragement, and support and nurturing, which you just do not get from narcissists because they don't see any of that in the other person. They're just getting what they need, and so they're completely blocked. So yeah, it goes from, like I said, that range from low to really high, and so it takes a while for my clients to realize that's what's going on, and it's becoming more and more mainstream. We just call them selfish bastards or selfish bitches before, but now we have a term for it called narcissism and narcissists. So it just categorizes that person who, yeah, doesn't have any empathy or very
And what
little.
do you think was the usually the final straw that gets people to say, right, Amanda, I've had enough now. I will do whatever it takes. What usually has to happen for people to reach that point?
Well, relationships, narcissists tend to not be faithful. So in many cases, it's that narcissist gone, well, I've got my empath here that loves me and does everything for me. I can go and get another one. So unfaithfulness is a big one in romantic relationships, in parent-children relationships. The child, like I had a lady, a fabulous woman whose voice was blocked, and that came from from childhood with a narcissist parent. And so we had to work on going back in time to reverse all of that. And now she's singing. She's just amazing. I love her voice. And it took her to realize, well, do you know what? I'm not doing what I love. I'm completely blocked with doing what I came here to do, my gift. I can't use it because of this block that began with a narcissist. So it's that pain level. The pain level's just, it's up at like 9 or 10. And they're like, okay, I really need to do something about this now.
And so talk about a little bit more about that, about taking people back in time. What process is that, and how do you help people to release the blocks?
When you end up in any kind of relationship with a narcissist, again, whether it's a work colleague, a relationship, whatever, there's something in you that says you're not good enough, you're not enough. You just, do as you're told, be quiet. I know in British culture where we're from, especially ladies like myself that are over 50, it was very much children are seen and not heard. And you just don't complain. We're not seen to be being complained. Luckily, I married a Frenchman who complains a lot. So I've learned a lot about complaining from him and saying what you're not happy with. So what I like to do is take people back in time, because a lot of these 99% of what we're experiencing when we're dealing with narcissists is it's a learned response. We're not born into the world as people that are drawn to empaths. It's something that we learn that comes from, like I said, those early childhood connections where you didn't get what you needed. So I like to go back in time, and I use a technique called timeline therapy primarily, along with some specific energy work that I've developed myself, to go back in time and heal those areas that didn't get the love or the support or the nurturing that that person needed. And usually we go back in time to either before or after they were born, or sometimes as in vitro, or when the baby's just born. It depends. I tune into the energy of the person. I get guidance to how far back in time that I need to go into those places that need to be made whole. And when you go into those places and you make that person whole, and you let them know that no matter what shit and trauma they've been through in their life, they're actually perfect, whole, and complete. There's nothing wrong with them. They don't have to be fixed necessarily. Just need to create that space to make that wholeness. And I bring it back through time in a frequency format and bring it into the now. So just bring all of that goodness into the now and just release the past as much as possible, because we keep all of that past in our mind. And for those of you that remember CDs, that pattern, that I'm attracted to a narcissist pattern, just keeps running. So I go in and break that CD and scratch it, which is essentially changing the neuroassociations in your mind so that you can't think the same way and you can't have the same energetic attraction to a narcissist. Because what we do is we ramp up that, do you know what, I'm actually okay, I'm good enough. And when you go up from a physics point of view, your vibration, your energetic level or frequency is higher. It's not as easy for you to attract a narcissist because they are attracted to somebody that's at a lower vibration, someone that's not happy with who they are, that hasn't got to that, do you know what, I'm actually a pretty good catch and I don't need to stay with such an asshole as you. But they've got to get to that point where they really, it's going to sound oversimplified again, but it takes some of us 50 years to get here, is I'm actually happy with who I am and I deserve better. And I'm actually just talking to a client, just texting her before I came on. She's over in California, dealing with a narcissist boyfriend. And she's getting to that point where she's realizing, do you know what, I'm too good for this. Yesterday she was thinking, well, I think I'll stay in the relationship. And I did a third session with her yesterday, and I just had a text her now, and she's going, I don't feel so good this morning. I'm thinking that I actually deserve better. And I'm like, the light bulb's gone up. And that's where we want to get people to that point where they go, do you know what, I deserve better than this. You're worth it. I love the L'Oreal phrase, you're worth it. And that's the point you've got to get to be able to deal with a narcissist. And once you're at that point, then there's a whole lot of other things you need to do to help them with that. But I know that we've already had these conversations before, that narcissists are set in their ways, and it does take a tremendous amount of energy to change or modify their behavior.
For sure. What do you think is the biggest belief that stops people from dealing with this?
I think as an empath, you're frightened of hurting the other person. And I know for some of my clients, they're also frightened of a physical reaction if they stand up, because to a certain extent, it's a form of emotional bullying. So it takes a lot of courage to stand up to that emotional bully. And so that's why they stand back. And I say to everyone, especially if they're in relationships, you have to have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. And I do have a lot of mums or wives that are in that narcissistic relationship, or even the other way around, husbands that have a narcissistic wife. Not as many, but they are in that trap, financially in particular, of not being able to get out of that relationship. So I think that holds them back, the financial and the emotional strength of not knowing how to deal with it. But obviously, talks like this and the information that you're putting out, Adam, is giving them the tools to say, hang on a minute, how can I actually deal with this? And for many people, separation is one of the main ways to deal with it, because it is very difficult. It's not impossible, but it is very difficult to change a narcissist. But it's not impossible unless they want to change, and that's the key. If they don't want to change, then you've got a bit of a job on your hands there.
Well, that's interesting. So what you're saying here, it is possible to change a narcissist. Is that the case? Can you give someone with no empathy their empathy back?
I think it's a tough call. And in my kind of 25 years of doing this, any of the, what do you call them? Recovering narcissists, I've managed to turn it around. But it's only when they've got come to their kind of dark night of the soul, when they realize they've been a complete, I'm going to say, I can't use a better word than arsehole. I should expand my vocabulary there. They kind of go, do you know what, I'm ready to change. And again, it's been illnesses that they've come up with. They've had so much anger, hate, resentment, which usually is like usually the kidneys, the liver, those kind of areas. And they're forced into thinking, hang on a minute, I need to just reassess, who am I, where am I going? And there's been crises that really have turned those kind of people around. So it is possible, but the majority of clients that I deal with that are in relationships with those narcissists, they haven't reached that point of crisis, and they do actually go through their whole life using that. As we know, with narcissists, it's a protection mechanism for them. It's pure protection, and unless they hit that crisis level and they have that dark soul or near-death experience, they don't realize what they're doing. They really don't. They have no clue the effect that they're having on other people. It just doesn't seem to register with them.
So this is an interesting topic that I am looking to explore here, because I've obviously been dealing mainly with empaths, um, getting people out of narcissistic relationships, because it's generally not worth the time, energy, or effort. And is it worth, is one of the big beliefs that I see people with, is that they do believe that they can change the narcissist. So let's explore now, is that worth it versus how possible it is? Because I guess in my world, I just tell people, get out, find someone better. It's not worth the time, energy, or effort. I'd really like to explore that with you.
Again, it depends on the relationship and the level of narcissism, because if it's a narcissism 210, it's not easy to do. And I know in some relationships, even when that person's left, I've had the majority of my clients that I work with, they have actually left the relationship. They've left it, and sometimes they will, the narcissist will actually regret it, and they'll attempt to get them back, but by that stage it's usually, it's too late. And then I've had other situations where there's violence or mental issues that are at play as well. And I've had some clients recently that have very strong mental challenges, and the relationship breakdown is just, I think it's impossible, not impossible, extremely difficult to repair. So I'm not in that particular circumstance. I'm not sure whether that's ever going to be repairable. So the short answer is, I think for most of the clients, is to, like I said, they've got to be clear about who they are and what they want first. And the level, like the other lady I'm dealing with today and this week, is what you're prepared to put up with and for how long. Because there's always love there. Generally, there's always love in some shape or form there. So it just depends, how much energy you want to put in. I don't think it's impossible, but if you're at that point where you really know who you are and what you want, your intuition is gonna give you a big clue as to its worth trying to do this, especially if it's the father of your children. How far are you going to go to maintain that relationship? But if that narcissist is not willing to try and see the other person's point of view, and they're just really struggling, and they're not getting therapy, and they're not willing to get help, then again, it's going to be a very difficult battle, and it's probably going to be better to move away rather than to try. But if they're sitting down, they're saying, I recognize that I am not good at communicating, I recognize that I'm not taking on board what you need, and they're trying to change, then I think it's worth trying and seeing a hypnotherapist or another therapist to see if they can make those changes. But you can't, you cannot, the old phrase is, you cannot lead a horse to water, and they have to be at that point where they want to make the changes. Otherwise, I think it is an uphill battle. If they're not willing to change at all, they're not seeing your point of view, they don't want to make the effort, they don't want to have therapy, they don't want to improve themselves in any shape or form, then it's the better idea is probably to walk away, because you
So
can't
it's
change them.
interesting, I guess, in my world. I mean, and maybe I need to open up the doors on my realizations here. I just always tell people to get out. So, I mean, that's effectively usually when people reach that point, they're at such a low ebb that there is that the narcissistic promise. Yes, we will do something about it, which gets to a certain point, and then there's a break. I mean, I haven't got a single example of someone that's been in a relationship with a narcissist where they've seen it through or had the energy. I mean, because usually it's, when people
It's
realize
not
it,
common.
by the
No, it's
time they
not common.
realize it's a problem, their energy's so low, they just don't have that staying power for another round of let's get in. So let me ask you directly, do you know any examples of people that have stayed in a relationship with a narcissist, having been at a low point, that have managed to see it through?
Yeah, I have quite a few wives of narcissists for the sake of the children, and to be honest, for financial reasons, have had to make it work. And they've put pressure on their partner to attend the therapy sessions and to make it work. And yeah, I'd probably say that all the ones that we've managed to turn around, they were in marriages with children. So there was a lot more at stake.
Hmm.
The majority of the relationships where there was no children involved and it was easy to walk away, then they generally walk away. I've had a couple of instances though of people going back to the narcissist and working it out, but what happened was they went off and sorted their own stuff out, got to a point where they felt that they could connect again, and then came back. But most of those ones, they went and did the work on themselves separately, and then they came back together. And there's a handful of those as well, but the majority of ones that do make it work are ones that are kind of in marriages, and financially there's a big loss if they don't stay, but they've managed to turn narcissists round. And that doesn't mean that they're not a narcissist at all. We're talking about taking them from like a level 9 down to like a level 2 or 3 and be very clear what they will and won't accept, otherwise they are going to leave with the kids.
So what
And
you're
that was
saying
enough
here is,
leverages for those narcissists to make those changes, but they didn't lose, there's still a bit of selfishness there, but they went from, like, as I said, a 9 to a 2.
so what you're saying there, correct me if I'm wrong, is you don't change a narcissist. What you do is set your boundaries to reduce their level of narcissism. Is that pretty much
Yeah,
what?
I don't know anyone that's gone from a level 10 narcissist to a level 0.
That's interesting. So making it work is very different from a sort of happy relationship. It's more a tolerance than a loving relationship. Would that be a correct assumption?
Well, for the women that stayed, they were, because it was such a big difference, they were actually happy that they've gone from a 9 to a 2. So
Yeah.
they were actually happy, and a couple of their children have actually left home now, and they're actually still together. So I would say that was a win, Adam. But yeah, I would say that they're still, from thinking about the husbands, they still like to do their own thing, they still like their independence, but they're more respectful, much more respectful than they were before. And
That's
the
really
cheating
interesting.
stopped and that kind of thing. So the cheating stopped, all that kind of thing, and they just realized, actually, do you know what? I've actually got a good thing here, but they still like their, a bit of independence, and occasionally there's still arguments, but overall they're happy because they still really love the person. And as far as they're concerned, they made huge changes. So that was good enough for them. And that for them was good enough, and they were happy.
That's interesting. Well, it's certainly a unique slant on things about how to deal with a narcissist, especially in a very close relationship like that. And also, I mean, I've known you for a while now, and it's a more recent journey where you've become a little bit more tapped in. Let's talk about that. What was it like when you suddenly discovered your support team?
We're talking about the ethereal support team.
Yeah. So I'm going to pre-frame this. I know a lot of interesting people and I know a lot of frauds. Like Amanda is the real deal. I've seen her from throughout this transition. And I can say that it's been a real privilege to watch somebody develop the psychic skills that you now have. How did that happen?
Well, I've been doing this work for about 25 years, and I really focused on the hypnotherapy from like 2018 and 2019. I was working with a client, and then this language came through, and I was like, "What is that?" And then I started to do a little bit more research and realized that when you do a lot of this work one to one with people, and you're working with energy, and you're using your mind, I do a lot of meditation, sometimes 2 or 3 hours a day. Your mind can tune in like a radio station to different frequencies. And obviously, when you met me, Adam, I was this, highfalutin businesswoman, wasn't coach, doing business consultancy, wasn't really kind of on really so much down the esoteric side. But in 2019, this, I'm going to call it a gift. This gift came through. I speak 5 languages anyway, but this happens to be the fifth language. And it just started coming through with hypnotherapy sessions. So it's a frequency that heals people at a deep level. So obviously I've got the clinical hypnotherapy and the neurolinguistic program, which is the main focus of the session in groups or individual sessions. And then this comes through and I just kind of tune in. It's like, to me, it's really like tuning into a radio station and then letting go and allowing that frequency or those codes to come through me in the form of a language. And I've noticed that with clients, it just heals at a much kind of subatomic level than I ever could have imagined. So we go through all the processes of the clinical hypnotherapy and the neurolinguistic program, so the mind's taken care of. And this frequency language seems to just fill in the gaps for whatever healing that person needs. And it seems to transcend across all space and time. And I don't pretend to know exactly how it works. I just know that it works. And if you speak to my clients, they can't explain either, but they know that they feel 110% better. They're healed physically, mentally, and emotionally. So it's like I know how to turn the light switch on, but I don't necessarily know how the electricity works. It just does. And so I've been using that probably now for the last 5 years, and it seems to be getting stronger and stronger. And Adam knows as well that I'm based in Mexico, and I don't do any marketing for my holistic hypnotherapy. It's 99% referral. So I've built a successful practice on word of mouth alone. I do some meditations here in the local community, but other than that, I don't actually advertise. So it just shows again, when you are tapped into that physics or the quantum realm, whatever you want to call it, respecting everybody's belief, it's just very powerful to be able to draw in or call in the people that really need you. So I do see myself as a lighthouse. And when I'm meditating, I get shown a picture of a lighthouse. And I think that's my job, to stay steady, to be calm, to just, be the light, be that answer for people that are going through the trauma and dealing with narcissists, because there's a lot of them out there right now. And just bringing in that the right person at the right time to activate them and get them to that point where, as we talked about leaving narcissists, that they really believe and know in their bones that they are perfect, whole and complete exactly the way they are. And that past is healed and whole and moved on. And the past is really, we're really letting go of the baggage. And once that happens, the energy just really frees the person up and to heal physically, mentally, and emotionally, and lets them be more alert and aware of why they came here, what they're here to do. We all came here with a mission and a purpose, whatever that is. And people become much more clear after working with me what that is, what's important. and heal, as I said, at a subatomic level, really.
Wow. Well, there's a lot to get stuck into for people, but I guess the bottom line from my perspective is it works.
Basically, that's it. And they come for the hypnotherapy session. It's relaxing. I explain to them that they might hear an interesting language when they are under hypnosis in trance, but just to go with it and just to go with the flow. And the majority of people do have very mystical, wonderful experiences and always feel a million times better when they come back to full awareness. And then after, obviously, there's always a series of synchronous events and people, places, circumstances, and things that just seem to line up for absolutely no reason. So I'm always interested to hear how they're doing and what, where they've got to the next level. It's a really fun job, and I absolutely love what I do. Love it.
Fantastic. Well, we'll put all of the details about how people can get in contact with you on this video. But if someone is interested in finding out more, you tell them, how do they find you?
The best way to find me is on LinkedIn, Amanda Steadman. I think it's Amanda Steadman 1, or just go to amandasteadman.com. That's AMANDASTEADMAN.com, and you can contact me from that page. If you put Amanda Steadman to Google, I'm pretty much all over it. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. But the easiest way is probably Amanda at amandasteadman.com is the easiest, fastest way to get in touch with me. I'm on my email all the time. So Amanda at amandasteadman.com if you want to connect and just have a chat. No commitment, just have a chat and I can see how I can help you. But if it's under the narcissist umbrella, I deal with it every day. There's always a way out.
Well, that's brilliant. And one final thing before you go, I'm going to throw this at you and see how you cope. And I'm pretty sure you'll do a pretty good job. What's a top tip that anyone that is stuck in a narcissistic relationship right now can take and use right now to move in the right direction, beyond obviously contacting you?
Yeah. I'm going to give a few tips actually. Number one is just know that you're worth it. So when you're feeling those frustrating emotions from the narcissist, just, especially if it's anger, just say to that negative emotion that's coming up, I love you and I let you go. Just let it come in and let it go out. And that'll help you get back to that kind of ground zero of that centeredness. And with that meditation as well, you've got to get your worth up. So really feel your worth and start to write down, okay, what are my boundaries? What will I accept and what will I not accept? Because your inner self's going to be telling you the whole time. You're going to be hearing, this isn't right, you deserve more. You're going to hear that voice in your head and you need to listen to it and react to it and start to build a plan for how and what else do I need to do to make myself feel perfect, whole and complete. Because when you get to that point and you know that there are other alternatives, you know that you're worth more, then it's going to be so much easier for you to come up with a plan to deal with the narcissist. And eventually, in most cases, as Adam and I have already said, is to leave that narcissist. There is not just one fish in the sea. There are plenty of fish in the sea, especially with relationships. If it's a mother, daughter, or parental child relationship, then again, there's always a way out. Whether you go and stay with a relative, there is always an option. But you have to decide what feels good to you first and what you will and won't accept. Once you determine your own boundaries, then you can start making decisions that are best for you and not for them, and you'll feel it.
Fantastic. Well, that's plenty for people to get stuck into. As ever, it's great to see you. Thanks for your insight and wisdom, Amanda. And thank you for joining me on this little podcast.
My absolute pleasure, Adam. I adore the work that you're doing and all the information you're putting out right now. So keep it going. And I look forward to talking to you again very, very soon. Take care, my darling.
Brilliant. Cheers, my dear. You take it easy.